Moments after the CEO left, a 12-year-old girl's surprising genius saved the entire company. Emma's heart raced in the crowded conference room, her small frame dwarfed by adults in expensive suits. As the CEO's laughter echoed in her ears, a cruel wave of humiliation crashed over her. A kid's ideas? Ridiculous. The dismissal sliced through her, sharper than any bully's jeer. At that moment, all her coding dreams, painstakingly crafted during sleepless nights on her old laptop, felt utterly worthless in the face of his condescension. Her cheeks burned not with anger, but with unrelenting self-doubt. In the days that followed, Emma's mind twisted the laughter over and over like a rusty reel. How could she, just a 12-year-old girl from a single-parent family, hope to be seen as anything more than a child? Her mother worked tirelessly at the startup, a flickering candle in the wind of financial instability. Each day, Emma struggled between her fears of being a burden and her desire to be the change. Her passion for coding should have felt like an adventure, but now it felt like another weight upon her shoulders, a reminder of her inadequacy. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Every time Emma sat down to work on her app, a shadow of doubt loomed large, whispering how futile her efforts were. She recalled the comforting words of Mr. Thompson, her retired engineer neighbor, urging her to believe in herself. But self-belief was like sand slipping through her fingers. The thrill of coding turned cold as deadlines loomed, and her mother's frazzled expression haunted her thoughts. What if she failed? What if everything crumbled, leaving her mother's dreams in tatters? Then the storm arrived. The company faced a financial crisis, and the CEO's desperation grew evident. Emma felt the pressure mounting, a storm of chaos swirling around her, leaving her small world feeling impossibly fragile. The whispers of other employees filled her ears. This is it. The end of the line. Words pierced her chest like arrows as she clenched her fists, vowing to stand her ground. Each day became a battle against the feeling that she didn't belong, that she would be cast aside, just like her ideas. Then came the moment Emma decided to take a stand, a fleeting thought igniting her determination. She envisioned showcasing her app, an idea that could solve her mother's company's biggest challenges. How could she gather the courage after being dismissed so cruelly? Just as her heart hesitated, she thought of her mother working late nights, skipping meals to keep the lights on. Emma couldn't let her down. She envisioned the boardroom again, filled with scoffing faces. Yet this time she would charge in armed with her project, her resolve hardening. As she rehearsed her pitch, she felt the weight of the world pressing down, a child battling against titans who laughed at her. With her laptop tucked under her arm, she took a deep breath that quivered in her lungs. Ready or not, this was her moment. With each step toward that intimidating boardroom door, Emma wondered if she could break through the layers of disbelief. Would her voice carry over the laughter? Desperation clawed at her insides as she prepared for the showdown that loomed just beyond, the clock ticking relentlessly toward her destiny. Emma pushed the heavy door open, her heart hammering in rhythm with the chaos spilling from the conference room. The moment she stepped inside, the chatter dissipated, leaving an uncomfortable silence that swallowed her whole. Her palms were slick against the cool aluminum of her laptop, and for a fleeting second, she considered retreating. But then she thought of her mother, the late nights, the worry-filled eyes that searched for hope amidst financial turmoil. The image ignited a fire within her, pulling her forward. She was not just a child. She was a daughter driven by a sense of duty. Her voice trembled at the edges as she made eye contact with the faces that had dismissed her days ago, their expressions morphing from confusion to skepticism. I have an idea that could help, she started, her voice somehow steadier than she felt. Each word was a small victory over self-doubt. She felt the energy in the room shift, a mixture of amusement and curiosity. The CEO leaned back, arms crossed, wearing a skeptical smile that made her stomach twist. As Emma recounted the challenges the company faced, she confidently framed her app as a solution. She broke down her concept, highlighting its potential to streamline operations and reduce costs. The more she spoke, the more her initial fear began to transform into an odd sense of empowerment. Her passion surged, and the technical jargon started flowing seamlessly, her fingers tapping against the laptop as she navigated the program to showcase her work. Yet, the CEO's incredulous grin persisted. "You really think that a child can save this company? This isn't a school project, Emma," he retorted, a hint of contempt lacing his tone. Each word struck her like a blow, but something deeper stirred within her, an iron resolve welding her nerves together. "I may be 12, she responded, surprising herself with the steadiness of her voice, "but that doesn't mean I don't understand technology and the problems we're facing. My age doesn't define my capabilities." The words felt monumental, each syllable an act of rebellion against the voice that had prided itself on her supposed insignificance. In that charged atmosphere, a flicker of recognition sparked in the faces around the table. Emma focused on the screen, her enthusiasm weaving through the technical aspects, strategically illustrating how her app functioned and the financial projections it could turn around. As she delved deeper into specifics, she saw a change in her audience. More than the pitch, they were witnessing her determination unravel before them. Every nod, every slight shifting of posture told her they were beginning to comprehend her conviction. Emma felt a rush of adrenaline as she shifted from describing her app to outlining how it would revolutionize their processes. It was no longer just a dream. It was a challenge to the disbelief that had initially stunted her growth. But still, doubt flickered at the edges of her mind. Could she keep pushing when confronted by the very essence of authority that had once belittled her? The chorus of her internal fears whispered viciously, urging her to falter. Finally, she reached the conclusion of her presentation, exhaustion mingling with exhilaration. There she stood, vulnerable but unabashed, no longer just a child, but a potential catalyst for change. The silence that followed was both suffocating and exhilarating. Then, as if struck by lightning, the CEO leaned forward. The amusement in his expression melted away. "You've caught my attention, but can your app actually deliver?" Emma's heart raced again, realizing how direly she needed to validate her ideas. But the moment had arrived, and she could feel her pulse quickening with possibility. With a newfound clarity, she understood that this was more than just a pitch. It was her chance to confront everything that had held her back. "Let me show you exactly how it works," she replied, determination hardening in her tone, ready to prove herself not just as a girl with a dream, but as a girl about to change everything. Little did she know, as doubts threatened to rear their heads again, she was moments away from uncovering not just her potential, but an unexpected ally hidden within the very doubts that once imprisoned her. Emma steadied her breath, every inhale resonating with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. The CEO's challenge lingered in the air like a live wire, crackling with potential. This was no longer just about presenting a vision. It was about demonstrating that vision's power. She maneuvered her laptop to face the audience, drawing their eyes back to the screen, to the carefully curated flow of her presentation. Each slide flickered with vibrant charts and intuitive designs. They were more than just numbers and colors. They represented an innovative approach to an age-old problem. But could she muster the courage to unveil her full capabilities? "Let us look at the data," Emma said, her voice now unwavering. She clicked through the slides, illuminating potential revenue increases and efficiency gains. She articulated complex algorithms made simple, transforming the abstract into concrete benefits. Every statistic reaffirmed her belief that her app could serve as the keystone for their struggling company. Yet, as she elaborated, a gnawing thought tugged at her consciousness. What would happen if they didn't see the merit of her ideas? What if they remained entrenched in their skepticism? The lingering doubts clawed at her, threatening to unravel her progress. Then, unexpectedly, one of her former skeptics, a senior developer named Mr. Jenkins, shifted in his seat. Leaning forward with palpable interest, he asked, How do you plan to implement the app without disrupting our current operations? His question, initially intimidating, turned to an opening. A chance to demonstrate her depth of understanding. Emma's heart raced, resolving to seize the moment. Great question. I propose a phased integration process, she responded, recalling how she had researched best practices for digital transformation. This approach allows us to pilot its features in a small department before we roll it out company-wide, ensuring we keep productivity steady while identifying any issues early. Another figure, the marketing head, chimed in, "What about user feedback during this trial? You need a plan to adapt based on real-world use." Emma smiled, feeling elated. Yes, these were valuable insights. Exactly. I suggest active user engagement during the testing phase, gathering feedback weekly to tweak functionalities. She was not just answering their questions. She was rallying them behind her vision. But underlying her excitement was a flicker of doubt. The fear that her solutions could crumble without foundational support. Could she actually lead this team? Did they truly see the potential they were overlooking? Just then, the CEO interjected, his voice now filled with genuine curiosity rather than skepticism. "William, Elizabeth, let us not forget that this proposal represents a culture shift. Emma, what do you believe is the biggest risk in changing our operations?" The room quieted, tension surging. Emma sensed this was her moment to reflect on her inner fears as much as answering his question. Could she pivot this anxiety to reinforce her confidence? The biggest risk is the fear of the unknown, resistance to change. I propose creating an internal communication strategy that emphasizes transparency, fostering dialogue and participation throughout the process. As she spoke, the faces around her shifted from doubt to consideration. What if we instead encouraged face-to-face workshops? The suggestions poured forth, catalyzed by Emma's strategic plan. The discussion transformed into a collaboration, breaking the barriers that had once encased Emma as just a child in a room full of adults. Trust was permeating the air. As the dialogue continued, Emma felt a warmth spread within her, a sense of belonging despite the initial confrontation. She realized her perspective wasn't just valid. It was necessary. And then, as the conversation crescendoed, she understood the truth that had been burgeoning beneath her surface. She had allies in the room, not just in their encouragement but also in their willingness to engage with her ideas on a level she hadn't anticipated. However, an alarming thought crossed her mind. Was she prepared for the inevitable pushback? What if this collaboration revealed cracks in her concept? As the meeting began to wrap up and the CEO declared, "Let us trial this app," Emma, a rush of exhilaration hit her. But the familiar specter of doubt skulked at the edge of her triumph, whispering that approval did not eliminate the potential for failure. The stakes had just escalated, but so had her need for clarity about herself. In the next hours, as she compiled her notes and reflected on their conversation, Emma knew she had to understand not only her project but also her ability to lead it through the storm ahead. And with that thought, a lingering question sparked within her. How would she navigate the treacherous road of leadership with her app as her guiding light? The aftermath of the meeting enveloped Emma in an exhilarating mix of relief and ambivalence. They had agreed to trial her app, yet the gravity of their decision weighed heavily on her shoulders. The flickering lights of her laptop dimmed in the glow of the office as she mulled over her notes, the numbers and projections swirling in her mind like a chaotic storm. She felt like an imposter, virtuous yet inexperienced in this new role as a leader. As she gathered her thoughts, the challenge of execution loomed larger than the initial presentation. Fielding questions was one thing. Managing a team and ensuring success in an operational rollout was another entirely. With an unwavering resolve, she began drafting her communication plan, knowing it would require more than just a series of emails. A cultural shift required a human touch, a way to engage her team in the journey ahead. She sat at her desk, determined to channel her uncertainty into a structured framework. The colored sticky notes aggregated on her monitor reflected her thoughts, competing visions and strategies clamoring for attention. Each note carried a story, an idea waiting to be explored. Emma pulled a few off the wall, creating categories. user engagement, training programs, feedback loops. She began to outline her strategy with fervor. Yet, in the back of her mind, a creeping sense of vulnerability lingered. Would her colleagues share her vision? The thought of her peers' judgment filled her with an unsettling mix of anticipation and dread. How would she inspire them to not just follow but actively champion the app's inclusion? She decided to reach out to Jenna, the company's project manager, a meticulous planner with the ability to bring people together. Emma had observed her confident style in meetings, and now felt it was time to leverage that. Jenna, she typed into the chat, "Can we meet tomorrow to discuss some ideas about enhancing team engagement around the app rollout?" The response was instantaneous. "Absolutely. I'd love to collaborate." Grinning, Emma felt a spark of momentum build. She was proactively cultivating her support network. That emotion translated into urgency as she envisioned herself in inspiring workshops, cultivating conversations that would nurture trust and alleviate fears concerning the impending changes. The next day, seated at a cafe, Jenna's enthusiasm was palpable. Emma laid out her framework, highlighting the workshops she envisioned. "I believe by including everyone in the discussion, we not only implement the app but create a culture of innovation." Jenna nodded, her eyes shining with agreement. "We can build a champion team, people who will advocate for the app and guide others throughout the transition." Emma's pulse quickened. Jenna's enthusiasm was a balm for her insecurities. They brainstormed a series of interactive sessions, focusing not just on the app's functionality, but on its potential benefits and encouraging team ownership. Days slid into weeks, and Emma facilitated engaging workshops, each session revealing the vast energy her colleagues brought to the project. However, each meeting also unearthed unaddressed fears and friction. A previously quiet team member named Alex openly aired his misgivings, saying, "What if this app complicates our workflow instead of streamlining it?" The room fell silent. Emma's gut twisted. She knew Alex's points were valid. Rather than falter, she seized the challenge head-on, believing transparency would marry her concept to her team's concerns. "That's a legitimate fear, Alex," she admitted, her heart racing. "Let's set up a feedback system during the trial to address issues in real time. Your insights can help fine-tune the app." A murmur of agreement swept through the group. In facing dissent openly, Emma was transforming resistance into collaboration. She felt the fractures within the team slowly mend, revealing a tapestry of creativity and possibility. But with each victory came new self-doubt. What if the feedback revealed deep flaws? Was she truly mature enough to navigate this framework of negotiation? As the first day of the rollout approached, Emma prepared for the unknown comprehensively. Yet a nagging thought gnawed at her. What if she risked everything only to fail in front of her peers? The evening before the launch, she gazed into her reflection. Could she be the leader this project demanded of her? The fear of slipping back into her former self lingered, but as she rallied her thoughts, a steely resolve began to form. She wouldn't let doubt stagnate her progress. Tomorrow was the first step toward proving that her app would not only be a tool but a catalyst for change. And as she turned off the lights, she held on to one pivotal realization. The journey ahead could define her not just as a developer but as a leader. What awaited her in the morning would determine if the team she had fostered would embrace the upheaval or resist it. With that thought lingering, she recognized something deeper at stake: her burgeoning identity as an innovator and leader. Could this trial project blossom into the pivotal moment she needed, both for the company and for herself? As the sun glimmered through the office blinds, casting stripes of golden light, Emma settled into her desk, a whirlwind of thoughts clashing like waves against rocky cliffs. The launch was happening today, and her heart raced in sync with the ticking clock. Each tick echoed her anxiety. Anticipation of success intertwined with fear of failure. Her colleagues began arriving, their chatter punctuating her internal dialogue, each conversation a reminder of the very real stakes at play. What if the app failed? The idea of their laughter echoing in her ears made her stomach churn. She shook her head softly, willing herself to focus. This wasn't about her. It was about creating value for all. At the morning meeting, apprehension rippled through the air as she introduced the rollout plan. She glanced at Jenna, who offered an encouraging nod. Emma's voice steadied as she articulated her vision, weaving together the benefits of the app with tangible outcomes. Yet, as she scanned the room, she recognized familiar faces reflecting skepticism more than enthusiasm. "Remember, ISNT technology meant to simplify our lives?" she asked, trying to ignite hope. "Our feedback system is built to accommodate real-time adjustments. This is a collaborative effort." As she encouraged openness, Alex's hand rose again. "I still think we might be pushing this too fast. Even with the feedback loop, what if we end up with more headaches than solutions?" Emma's heart sank, a familiar wave of insecurity crashing over her. Deep down, his skepticism haunted her insecurities, gripping her tighter with every word. But she needed to keep control of the narrative. "I understand the concern, Alex. How about we schedule weekly updates to evaluate progress and address any points of friction? That way, we create a space for genuine collective input." The most unexpected moment arrived next when the CEO, having listened intently, leaned forward, eyes glinting with curiosity. "What do you think, Alex? Do you believe we should delay?" The pressure surged in the room. Emma held her breath, internally pleading for Alex to see the possibility, to lead her fears toward constructive dialogue rather than resistance. "Not necessarily. It's just—" Alex paused, uncertainty flooding his voice. "The last app launch caused a lot of stress. Trusting this new approach feels risky." Suddenly, Emma grasped how the weight of past experiences suffocated innovation. "Alex, I respect that. Many of us have faced challenges before, but can we allow those memories to dictate our future? If we could adapt those lessons into our execution instead of being bound by fear, wouldn't that be a step towards growth?" She felt the gravity of her words settle in the room as shifting dynamics unfolded. Hesitant glances transformed into nods of reflection. By confronting her colleague's doubt, she was not just engaging with him but extending her own conviction that vulnerability could pave the way for growth and success. The CEO smiled, a sign of approval sparking life within Emma's chest. "That's insightful, Emma," he said, his tone grounding her spiraling anxiety. "Leadership isn't just about control. It's about fostering an environment that embraces both success and failure as part of the journey." Energized by his comments, Emma leaned into her newfound inspiration. She felt alive in this interaction, as if each sentence breathed life into a shared vision. Each participant mattered, and every concern unveiled an opportunity for growth. Nevertheless, Emma's doubts lingered. Would the feedback be constructive or destructive? The specter of failure loomed yet again. As the day progressed, Emma's confidence grew. She embraced her role as a synthesizer of ideas, bridging barriers between her peers and the app's potential. However, the weight of the looming trial still burdened her thoughts. Each decision and each interaction consolidated into a lesson on bravery and vulnerability, that accepting doubt didn't equate to failure, but rather an opportunity to rise. At the end of the day, the silence of her office was profound. After hours of feedback, engagement, and some lively debates, she replayed each interaction in her mind, assessing her growing influence and burgeoning identity as a leader. She was changing, her past didn't define her future. So, as she prepared to leave, her phone buzzed with an alarming notification. The feedback had started to roll in, and her heart raced at the unknowns yet to come. What would the response be? Would her colleagues recognize the potential she saw, or would her doubts cloud the feedback? One pivotal moment could alter everything. Emma stilled as the notification on her phone illuminated the darkening room, casting a ghostly glow against the walls. She hesitated, a maelstrom of anxiety enveloping her. Would the feedback validate her choices, or would it confirm her fears? Swallowing hard, she reached for the device, her fingertips tingling with apprehension. The first message was from Jenna, a succinct summary. "It's a hit. Positive feedback from users about user experience." A wave of relief surged through Emma, juxtaposing against the weight of the imminent uncertainties. Her heart raced, not just in triumph but in the recognition that the first hurdle had been leaped. She couldn't linger on this success. Every positive aspect demanded her immediate attention to pave the way for future improvements. As she scrolled through additional messages, her excitement faded into a simmering doubt. Mixed reviews filled her screen. Great concept, but initial bugs was a common theme. A sense of dread crept back into her thoughts. With every technical limitation described, it felt as if the very innovation she had championed was diminishing. Mired in this conundrum, she threw her phone down and leaned back in her chair. The shadows of the evening enveloped her as if they bore witness to her tentative leadership. This influx of feedback wasn't merely data. It was experience begging to be addressed. She needed to act because inaction would only solidify doubt amongst her team. Emma stood up, channeling the frustration that bubbled within her. Tonight would not be a night for self-pity. Fueled by an innate determination, she grabbed her notepad. The first step in her mission: analyze each feedback point and devise actionable solutions. A few hours later, Emma settled into her desk. Her workspace transformed into an organized battlefield, notes scattered with a purpose. Mapping out issues on the whiteboard, she began to visualize the pathway to rectify them. Each bug was no longer a detriment. It was a learning opportunity, a stepping stone toward mastery. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the office in hues of twilight, and a sense of clarity seeped into her thoughts. She glanced around the room, empty yet insistent in its silence. It was just her, but she felt a buzzing energy within her, a map emerging within the fog of chaos. Each point of feedback represented a conversation she needed to have. She needed to reach out to her team members, tapping into the collective genius of their experiences to foster a transparent culture. What if they could embrace the imperfections together? This could evolve her from simply a leader to a facilitator of transformation. Emma sprang into action, drafting an email to her colleagues, inviting them to an open forum discussion about the feedback received. She proposed utilizing everyone's insights, believing that this shared ownership might safeguard them from past mistakes. While writing, she felt the whimsical notion of a 12-year-old girl emerging in her mind, the one she equated with youthful genius and unfiltered creativity. Let us tap into that spark, Emma murmured to herself, her resolve refueled. The innocence with which children approach challenges often bore the simplicity that adults complicated. Could she remind her team that vulnerability lightened fear? This was her next step: to elevate her group's emotional intelligence to counter their technical anxieties. The email sent, Emma's heart raced again, but this time with empowerment. She felt lightheaded with potential, the very potential that birthed the app and could save it again. Yet as she closed her laptop, her thoughts turned back to Alex. Would he engage with this revised dialogue, or would his past experiences continue to shadow the path ahead? The undeniable tension lingered as a new wave of uncertainty washed over her. How would her team respond? Could this open forum shift the narrative? One thing was for sure: the game was no longer about the app. It was about the team that made it, a team she was determined to lead through the doubt and into a brighter tomorrow. As she made her way home, she replayed the day's interactions in her mind, eager for the next step and the new discussions that awaited. Tomorrow would bring challenges, but perhaps, just perhaps, it could illuminate an unexpected genius within her ranks. But would they all be ready to face that potential? The office buzzed with a mix of unease and curiosity as Emma arrived the next morning, her heart a synchrony of hope and flush anxiety. The open forum loomed ahead, a space she'd carefully structured to welcome dialogue, but the trepidation of rejection gnawed at her. Steeling herself, she opened the door to the conference room, the scent of fresh coffee wafting through the air, mingling with the palpable tension from her team already seated around the large table. "Good morning, everyone," she said, her voice steady despite the tempest brewing within. A few heads nodded, a couple of polite smiles emerged, but beyond the facade of camaraderie, she sensed an undercurrent of skepticism. "Thank you for being here. I want to turn our focus to the feedback we've received and how we can grow from it." As she transitioned into her agenda, Emma noticed Alex standing at the back, arms crossed tightly. His body language exuded reluctance, a visual language she had come to understand as a symptom of deeper dissatisfaction. She breathed deeply, determined to engage him directly. Alex, what's your perspective on the bugs we found? His eyes narrowed slightly, contemplating her question for what felt like an eternity. Well, it's not just the bugs, is it? They hint at a bigger issue, our lack of testing procedures before release. We've been rushing things and hoping for the best. The truth of his statement hit her hard, a reminder that their urgency for success had led them into complacency. You're right, she replied encouragingly. We overlooked the necessary steps. What do you suggest to address that? A ripple of surprise passed through the room, the unexpected engagement beginning to thaw the ice between them. Bit by bit, Alex articulated a plan for more inclusive testing phases, inviting volunteers from the development team to participate in quality assurance. His passion, once restrained, unfolded as he spoke. The murmurs grew, and Emma watched as others chimed in, building on his foundation. Emma seized the moment. This is what I mean by shared ownership. Each of you brings unique insights. Let us not see the negatives as roadblocks but as puzzle pieces we still need to fit together. The energy in the room shifted. The participants were no longer defensive but rather collective problem solvers. The dialogue flowed seamlessly, revealing hidden talents among her colleagues. Jenna demonstrated an aptitude for strategic planning that left Emma in awe. Each contribution further chipped away at the alleged weaknesses, transforming doubts into collaborative solutions. The team's perspectives merged brilliantly, and her heart swelled with pride and appreciation for their emerging genius. But even as optimism grew, something in the pit of her stomach warned her that hurdles still loomed. Emma turned the conversation to emotional intelligence, urging open vulnerability about their fears of failure. Let us face the uncomfortable. It's easy to retreat into defensiveness, but can we agree that fear only limits us? The room simmered with contemplation, punctuated by tentative nods. A few confessions of past mistakes surfaced, and Emma guided them gently, using her previously unused skill as a facilitator to help them explore their vulnerabilities without judgment. Remember when we had to scrap the last release? One team member asked, a pained expression coloring her features. I thought it would never work again. Emma felt the weight of their shared experiences heighten in significance. But it worked because we learned, adapted. Look at what we've done together even now. After 2 productive hours, Emma concluded the session, a mixture of exhilaration and exhaustion draping over her. The open forum had transformed a potential breeding ground of dissent into a crucible of innovation, but the shadows of doubt lingering in Alex's eyes remained a stark reminder of the challenges that awaited. The team left with plans in motion, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that their true battles were just beginning. She surveyed the room, still buzzing with remnants of their discussions, and wondered how long until the next disruptive wave hit them. Would they continue to rise together, or would the reality of their vulnerabilities fracture the newfound unity? As she prepared to leave, a sudden urge washed over her to check her phone. A new notification blinked and, in an instant, her heart plummeted at the unexpected sender. The email title read, Board Meeting Agenda, Immediate Attention Required. A quick glance at the clock told her it was time for some serious navigation through corporate waters. She stood at the precipice of her professional evolution, but could she steer her team through the murky depths entailed in corporate politics? This moment, undoubtedly, would be a critical test of her resolve and adaptability. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she opened the email, each word thrumming through her like the beat of a war drum. The subject loomed large: an impending board meeting. Her mind raced with potential scenarios, all leading back to the power dynamics that seemed to thrive in those rooms. Would the board appreciate the strides her team had made, or would they focus on the lingering imperfections? Pushing the anxiety aside, she scanned the minutes before the meeting, attempting to formulate a strategy that would appeal to the board's critical eye. She needed to emphasize the open forum's success, how it had cultivated the team's skills and their emergent clarity. But just as crucial would be her defense of the minor setbacks like the bugs they had encountered that had been, after all, stepping stones. Ultimately, she understood, this was about building a narrative that would resonate with their expectations of profitability and stability. Entering the boardroom, an environment starkly different from her conference room, Emma felt the shift in energy. The dark wood of the table loomed like a fortress, and the board members were arrayed on either side, their expressions mostly neutral, save for a few expectant glances. She steeled herself, recalling her earlier determination to reframe the narrative. She was not just presenting numbers and outcomes, but a vision of resilience and adaptability. As she began her presentation, she noticed the CEO, Mr. Hayes, leaning back in his chair with a dismissive air, a subtle smirk tugging at the corners of his mouth. It felt like a challenge, a dare to bypass the complexities of their recent blunders. The initial report rolled out smoothly, graphs tracing a line of recovery since those failures. Yet, just as she thought she was gaining momentum, Mr. Hayes interjected, "Emma, I'm really not concerned about these minor adjustments. What's your bigger plan moving forward? Or are we still hoping on past lessons learned?" His laughter punctuated the query, echoing the doubt that bubbled beneath them all. A flash of indignation surged within her. She recalled the vulnerabilities shared in the open forum and how the entire team had rallied to address those issues. "Actually," Emma countered, her voice steady despite the undercurrents of apprehension, "what I'd like to highlight is not just a plan, but a paradigm shift. It's about embedding critical testing into our practices and encouraging cross-team collaboration, which we initiated just last week. If we continue to embrace this open dialogue, every member can contribute to evolving our processes." A quick murmur passed through the room, softer than before, a ripple of newfound curiosity surfacing among her colleagues. She pressed on, detailing how Alex's contributions had sparked their commitment to excellence, making it clear that each newly uncovered talent pointed toward a future of shared responsibility. As she spoke, she felt a transformation within herself. Her words gained depth, a visceral understanding surfacing. This wasn't just about appeasing the board anymore. It was about standing firm in the face of skepticism and showcasing the real power behind a united front. Yet, their unyielding gaze weighed heavily. Would this change in perception take root, or would it vanish behind the walls of corporate cynicism? As the meeting progressed, Emma's confidence wavered slightly, but then she remembered her team, the bonds they had forged, and the dialogue that had sparked greater creativity. The concluding remarks felt eerily tense. "We will integrate these suggestions and focus on setting measurable outcomes. I believe in our path forward, and I hope you can see the potential for growth not just as individuals, but as a cohesive unit," she finished, her voice infused with fervor. As the board members absorbed her final words, she noticed Alex in the corner of the room, his supportive nod bridging the divide created by the earlier laughter. The tension coiled tightly around her chest, but the potential for fracture seemed to have been counteracted by undeniable progress. And yet, as she stepped outside the meeting room, apprehension loomed large. The feedback she received would be critical, but more daunting was the realization that their battle against complacency still lay ahead. She paused at her desk, glancing at a paperweight that had once belonged to her mentor, a gentle reminder of resilience. Would she continue to advocate for her team's strength and inner dialogues? Would their newfound openness withstand the scrutiny that lay ahead? The thought struck deep, a fascinating yet unsettling twist, promising revelations about her own leadership style yet to unfold. As the weight of the day settled upon her, Emma felt a determination creak to life within. She was not merely maintaining the ship. She intended to navigate it through rough waters even if the storms proved relentless. The following weeks would demand her unyielding focus like never before. What awaited them on the horizon? A wave of uncertainty crashed over her, but she was ready to confront whatever storms might emerge. The next challenge was undeniably close. The board's decision loomed palpable, and with it, the opportunity to truly reaffirm her place and steer her team forward. The days following the board meeting felt both charged and uncertain for Emma. Feedback came steady, a slow trickle at first, but each insight reshaped her perspective. Mr. Hayes' laughter, which still stung, morphed into a motivation. She resolved to treat the initial derision not as a mere dismissal, but as a challenge, a call to prove herself and her team. Emma pored over the responses from board members, linking their comments to actionable strategies. The scrutiny fueled her desire to refine her vision, distilling it further into a coherent narrative that highlighted resilience. She scheduled feedback sessions with her team, inviting them into the process of reshaping their path forward. This was a chance to translate vulnerabilities into strength, and she felt the pulse of their collaborative spirit rise. Sitting in her office, she gazed at a wall filled with whiteboard notes. A visual constellation of ideas blossomed, each colored marker representing a piece of their journey. The apprehension that had clung to her brought clarity. She was not in this alone. They all wanted to evolve. With each strategy discussed, whether it be quantifiable metrics or amplifying cross-departmental exchanges, the tension in Emma's shoulders eased. She realized the true significance was not the corporate ladder, but creating a legacy within her team. In one notable session, an echo of Alex's earlier contributions drew Emma's attention. What if we showcase our struggles alongside our successes in a revealing way? Instead of glossing over challenges, we fully embrace them, share the insights we gained, and show just how far our adaptability has led us, he suggested, enthusiasm igniting his words. She observed how he, too, had transformed since their last forum, no longer hesitant but stepping into leadership. This shared dialogue became a cornerstone of their strategy. Harnessing this momentum, she incorporated storytelling into her upcoming presentation to the board. She aimed to weave a narrative not just of what they had achieved, but who they had become. Would they become a company that embraced both its triumphs and flaws? Would they reposition themselves as pioneers, open to vulnerability whilst navigating through uncertainty? Such was her ambition, and she felt exhilarated by the thought. Yet, as the new presentation day approached, the old anxieties clawed back. What if Mr. Hayes still saw them as unworthy of respect? Would the board fail to connect with the authenticity she intended to project? In the dead of night, those questions began to haunt her, leading Emma to reflect on her purpose. The battle wasn't about impressing the board. It was about empowering her team to adopt a voice that resonated beyond those wooden walls. Meanwhile, Emma's thoughts strayed to the young prodigy within her midst. Lena, just 12 years old, had been hanging around the office, the daughter of one of the junior analysts, absorbing everything like a sponge. There was a spark in her, the kind of ingenuity that could illuminate their path in unexpected ways. What if she could contribute? What if her unique viewpoints could reshape their approach entirely? As the clock ticked down and the hours crystallized into minutes before the board meeting, Emma made a decision. She would invite Lena to contribute to their presentation. It not only posed a risk but also uncovered the hidden strengths she had championed with her team. Unpredictable since its inception, but with a sharpness that could pierce through routine skepticism, Lena's presence might be exactly what they needed. The moment of truth loomed near, and with it, an exhilarating uncertainty. Emma held tightly to her newfound clarity, ready to embrace whatever came next. Could a child's ingenuity become the catalyst for their revival? Would Lena's voice alter the course of their company's future? As she stood at the cusp of this pivotal moment, Emma felt a thrilling sense of possibility. This was the beginning of a new chapter, and it gleamed with uncharted potential. The boardroom was hushed, a solemn anticipation filling the air as Emma stood at the front, flanked by her team, with Lena positioned at her side. She could feel her heart pounding, but there was also an invigorating current of energy running through her. She was not just presenting numbers or concepts. She was illustrating a transformation both within herself and her company. This moment was a culmination of every struggle, every doubt, and every effort her team had invested over the past months. Emma began to speak, her voice steady. Thank you for allowing us to present today, particularly after the challenges we've faced. What you're about to hear is more than just a report. It's a story of our journey, a journey of resilience, collaboration, and innovation. With a decisive click, she advanced to the first slide. Lena stood at the ready, her face radiating enthusiasm that was infectious. Emma had invited her to share her unique experiences as a young coder and her perspective on innovation, knowing that such an approach would present a fresh lens that the board hadn't considered before. Lena's voice chimed, bright and clear. When my mom explained what the challenges were, I started thinking about how I approach problems with my coding projects. I use trial and error, but I also look for help from my friends. I believe that's what great teams do, too. It's about working together, not just relying on one person. Emma saw the board's expressions shift, curiosity igniting in their eyes. The juxtaposition of a 12-year-old's insight against the backdrop of corporate strategy was not just refreshing, it was disarming. Lena continued, I noticed that every time we debug something, we get better. So, if we share our struggles and celebrate even more our successes, we'll have a stronger team. Emma's heart swelled with pride. Lena was embodying the spirit they had cultivated, daring to challenge the conventional wisdom that had once stifled innovation within these walls. As Emma took the reins again, she then laid out their strategy to the board. She emphasized the importance of their new phase of collaboration, citing Alex's earlier contributions as various departments worked together to ensure the app's successful integration. We started incorporating sharing systems to invite feedback from everyone, she asserted, because we know that inclusivity is integral to success. Emma moved through the presentation with fervor, detailing all their developed features, enhanced metrics, and a proactive plan for future testing that ensured every voice was heard. The room began to buzz with recognition. Her team's growth was evident. Their potential was palpable. Each positive nod from the board was like a surge of validation, each approving glance a reassurance that they had turned the tide. When she completed the presentation, she felt liberated. Emma had not just delivered information. She had woven a narrative that advocated for transparency, collaboration, and the embracing of failure as an opportunity for growth. As the meeting concluded, Emma sat at the edge of her seat, anxiety gripping her momentarily. Then Mr. Hayes inclined forward, the air heavy with expectation. Emma, I must admit even I underestimated the power of teamwork and transparent communication. Your new direction is promising. We should leverage this creative energy moving forward. What are the first steps? The shock at his tone rippled through the room. An unexpected smile flickered across Emma's face as confidence surged within her. We propose monthly innovation workshops, combining our teams with younger talents like Lena here. By embracing diverse perspectives, we can not only navigate our current challenges, but look ahead toward breakthrough solutions. Their enthusiasm mirrored her own, sparking an unexpected excitement amongst the board members. The staff began to lean into the dialogue, sharing thoughts on collaboration that had clearly been stifled in the past. Later, as Emma stepped out of the boardroom, both exhilarated and exhausted, she caught a glimpse of Lena in her peripheral vision. This wasn't about a single win. It was about fostering an environment where every voice mattered, especially voices that were often dismissed. The weeks that followed solidified that vision. Emma coordinated workshops that brought together her colleagues and invited young, talented minds from the community. They generated initiatives that not only enhanced productivity but also tweaked their app based on real-world feedback, utilizing the diverse insights offered. Emma had transformed not only in her role but in her identity as well. She had proven herself competent and confident, establishing her position as a leader grounded in empathy and collaboration. Satisfaction enveloped her, a hard-won understanding blossoming that leadership wasn't about wielding authority. It was about inspiring others, sharing vulnerability, and growing together. As the sun set on one of the company's best quarters yet, Emma looked out over the city skyline, feeling a resonance within. She was no longer just a girl fighting for recognition. She was a beacon of leadership, an innovator embraced for her insights, and a mother's pride wrapped in the promise of the future. Now, it was time for each of you, the readers and supporters of this incredible journey, to join in the movement of transformative storytelling and encouragement. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread the message of overcoming doubt and achieving dreams. Comment your reactions and theories about Emma's extraordinary journey, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Let us inspire together.